Ken, people are saying that California might possibly be able to make the whole country drive electric cars. Is that true?
Well, it's a good question. Here's the issue. The Department of Justice has sued California, and the outcome of that case will answer that question.
So what do you suspect? What do you think will happen?
Well, honestly, I don't think that California can do that. I think that the Department of Justice wins that case, but the analysis of it, the legal analysis, is actually pretty interesting.
But can you tell people if they don't know what's going on? Can you just say it in simple terms, what is happening?
Yeah, so California has their zero emissions mandate for vehicles. By 2035, they want all vehicles within the state to have zero emissions. Federal law allows states to set emission standards. And so the issue is this: vehicle manufacturers are not going to manufacture different vehicles for California versus the rest of the country. So if that mandate stands and vehicle manufacturers have to go to zero emissions vehicles, they'll do it nationwide. So effectively, California is mandating that the rest of the country go zero emissions as well.
So does that mean if I want to take a trip to Disney, do I have to have my car the same level of emissions that they're wanting if this passes?
Well, so
or continues to be
if you think about emissions, it's about vehicle registration within the state. So you're registering your vehicle in your state. You have to pass emissions standards within your state. So if you have an out-of-state vehicle and you're driving into California, you would not have to because the vehicle's not registered there. But like I said, if those zero emissions hold up, then vehicle manufacturers are left with no choice but to change their entire fleet of vehicles so they meet California emission standards. And so that's the issue. That's really what California is trying to do here, is affect the entire nation, and they know it.
Well, that's really a bummer, because what if somebody can't afford to buy a new car? Then they just can't drive? Like if it happens in California where you have to have a certain, well, I guess they're giving them time because they say it's 2035.
Yeah. And honestly, I don't see that there's any way that the Supreme Court comes down and upholds that, because although states can pass laws controlling emissions within the state, only the federal government can pass laws and regulations that have to do with fuel efficiency. And so that's really the conflict here is, although California says they're doing it based on emissions, it's really a fuel efficiency thing by going to all electric vehicles. And that's something that only the federal government has the right to do. So there's this clash of federal law versus state law.
But from what I heard from Rod Allen, who was on the show before, that he had to have a certain type of lawnmower, that's current. You can't just have a gas-powered motor.
That's part of their zero emissions mandate.
But that is currently
so
standing.
They're phasing it in over time. That's why it's by 2035, and they've started with some of those things. I think we heard something about RVs as well. But honestly, I think this lawsuit has to resolve it. Believe it or not, there was years ago, a prior federal case where the state of Illinois passed a law that said that trucks, big semi-trucks, had to have rounded mud flaps versus squared off mud flaps. And that went up to the Supreme Court, similar type issue. And the issue really comes down to one state cannot pass a law that affects what's called interstate commerce. So as commerce travels back and forth across state lines, the argument in the mud flap case was the trucking companies were either all trucks were going to have to stop and change their mud flaps, or they were going to have a different set of fleet trucks just for within the state. That affects interstate commerce, and so it was struck down.
But what's the purpose of rounded or squared?
Who knows? Who knows what I don't know. I didn't look into the background of that law as to why they made that law. I'm just looking at it from the perspective of constitutional law. And constitutional law says that the federal government is the supreme law of the land. So you can't have a state law that's in conflict with federal law. Federal law wins out. But also, even if there's not a conflict within the laws, if it is a law that a state passes that affects interstate commerce, it can't hold up. And so I think that's the argument here, is that zero emissions vehicles just in California would affect interstate commerce, with the vehicle manufacturers not being able to transport the vehicles that they're manufacturing into California. So I don't think that it holds up. I think the Department of Justice wins this all day long.
Well, when are they going to find out, and how do people find out?
Well, so the case, the lawsuit from the Department of Justice was just filed. So just like any other case, it's going to have to go through all the discovery process, et cetera, until it eventually makes it to a hearing.
And how long is that for the regular person?
I couldn't tell you.
A year, 10 years?
No, I think not 10 years. I think it's probably something within a year that the Supreme Court hears. That would be my guess, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that's a pretty interesting issue. And we saw the same type of thing back in the 60s with the civil rights era.
I didn't see it. I wasn't alive.
I wasn't either.
Oh.
But we saw it legally, we saw it back in the 60s with the civil rights movement, when they, in the South, had segregation in like, for example, diners where, only white people could use certain water fountains and sit in certain areas. And a similar lawsuit was filed saying, you know what, those diners get their ketchup imported from other states. So that's crossing state lines. That's interstate commerce. So they are in violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause by using ketchup and not following the federal law at the time that said no segregation. So it's just
what does ketchup have to do with it?
Because it crossed state lines.
So what?
Interstate Commerce Clause.
I feel like this has to do with only people making money.
Well, that's the idea behind the Interstate Commerce Clause. No state can pass a law that impairs interstate commerce. So when the country was founded, all the different states were thought of much differently than they are now. They were thought of more as independent states that just had an overseeing federal government. Now our federal government is so all pervasive and so large and powerful that we're really just part of the federal government. Yeah. But when the Interstate Commerce Clause in the Constitution was made, it was because they wanted to make sure that the states did not pass laws that affected another state, that hurt another state through commerce. So that's where that ends up.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, no, it's not.
I love ketchup.
I find it interesting. I find it very interesting. Now, you had another issue that you wanted to discuss about plastic surgery.
Yes, I do. So I was watching something on TikTok where this lady for the last year was documenting her decision to do a mommy makeover, which is a tummy tuck, breast lift, things like that. And she ended up getting on hospice after. And it was in our country. This guy looked like he was reputable. She researched the different doctors and she ended up being intubated, and the husband said brain dead. But now they're saying she's on hospice, breathing on her own. So my question is, because I've had a situation where I used something on my face with a doctor and I ended up getting scarring. And, people don't think about plastic surgery and regular surgery as different. I mean, it's not really different when it comes to the standard of care, but when you're doing something elective, we've had people call us saying, I don't like how my breasts turned out. I don't like how my facelift turned out. It's too tight. It's too this. If you don't like the work that the guy did or the gal did, are you able to sue and say, hey, I want my money back because I want to go to someone else to have them fix what I don't like?
Yeah, see, that's a great question. And here's the way you have to look at it. The analysis.
Well, hold on. Before we go there, because I messed you up. First, go back to that woman. So the woman that is in ICU or in hospice, if they did nothing wrong and it was just, and it's still an elective surgery, can they sue for that?
Yeah, see, that's the question. That's what we don't know. We don't have the facts about. But every surgery, whether it's a plastic surgery or another surgery, comes with risks. And that's why the doctors have to go through their informed consent with you. They have to sit down before you go into a surgery and say, just so you know, there are risks to every surgery. There's the risk of infection. There's the risk of bleeding. There's the risk that there'll be scarring. So there's all these things that they can't control. And if it's something that is a known adverse consequence that they can't control, that can happen even if they're being the most careful that can be, and it still goes wrong, then that's not, it's called deviating from the standard of care. That's not committing malpractice. You have to prove that a reasonable surgeon, a reasonable doctor in that same exact situation would not have allowed that to happen. So that's what we don't have all the facts about with this.
But that's where the slippery slope comes in, because somebody could say, well, this is obvious. My facelift does not look good. Look at this side healed different than this side. And, no one in their right mind would think that this looks normal.
So when it comes to this kind of thing, it's difficult to assess these cases. It's not that they cannot bring a malpractice case. They're very difficult, though. And the reason is because a bad outcome does not necessarily mean that there was malpractice. And juries can be very, very harsh in deciding cases where there's elective surgery, where I'm deciding to go in and get a facelift, deciding to go in and do something, particularly when it comes down to aesthetic. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Do they like it? Do they not like it? Should it have been better, or is it good enough? It's something that's very, very difficult to get a jury to come down and say, yeah, that's bad enough. He or she deserves money for that.
But the hard thing is, too, as a mom myself and having kids and have considered a mommy makeover, a breast lift, tummy tuck, it still happens often enough, even in the States, without people having to go to Mexico or wherever they go, where people end up dying from plastic surgery. There's enough celebrities that have died or their parents that have died. And it's something I think that because it's a fun thing, it's an exciting thing. I'm going to get to look like this in my bathing suit. And there's so many success stories that I think that we really put on the back burner the risks. And for me, at one point, I had said I wanted a mommy makeover, but then I started thinking, if something were to happen, God forbid, that small percentage, I don't want to leave my family. And I know that a lot of people might think that's a little bit dramatic because there's so many positive things that people get from that. But when it comes to, for me, it's different if, let's say, you have plastic surgery because you lost so much weight that the skin is just overwhelmingly hanging down and it's uncomfortable and sore. That's more of a medical issue, if you ask me. But if it's just a little bit here and there to look better, that's up to you if you're willing to risk that. For me, myself, at this stage in my life and wanting to be there for my family, I'm more conservative with that.
Hey, real quick, if you're new here, my name is Ken Gerber, and I run Gerber Injury Law here in Phoenix, Arizona. If you've been hurt in an accident, I want you to hear me clearly. The insurance company is not on your side. They have lawyers working for them from day one. You deserve the same. At my firm, we take on car accidents, slip and falls, and all types of personal injury cases across Arizona. And here's what I tell every single client. You pay nothing unless we win. No upfront cost, no risk, just me and my team fighting hard to get you what you're actually owed. If you've been injured, don't wait and don't settle cheap. Give us a call. The consultation is completely free, and I'll personally make sure we take care of you. All right, back to the show. I totally agree with that, and that's the position when we talked about it that I had as well. I don't think it's worth the risk for you. And from the legal perspective, there are things that are, like I said, known adverse consequences where they can happen even when the doctor is being as careful as they should be. One of those, and this comes up whether it's plastic surgery or any other type of surgery, we get calls daily of people saying, I had such and such a surgery, now I've got a terrible infection. Infections happen. Infections are a known risk of any surgery, however great or small they are. Just the fact that somebody gets an infection from a surgery does not mean that there's medical malpractice. And I've had people call up and they've said, I had this surgery, the surgical suite, the surgical room was dirty, now I have this infection. It doesn't matter why you have the infection. You have an infection after a surgery. It's a known adverse consequence.
So it doesn't matter if it was a dirty room? Like, would they have to? They'd have to prove that though, or it doesn't matter.
The fact of an infection does not equal malpractice. Malpractice comes in when an infection is not recognized and treated timely and properly.
Okay, so if you're calling
that's when you have a case for an infection.
So
after
you're
a surgery.
calling up and you're saying, I'm noticing some swelling, some pus, wherever you have this incision, and let's say they blow you off. But isn't that your job though to say, if I feel like I have an infection and that my doctor's office is blowing me off, I should probably go to the ER. I mean, where is that line where it becomes obviously your responsibility too? I noticed my nipple was black and falling off from this infection, and I waited for my doctor a week later and it completely fell off, and now I blah, blah, blah. Like, at what point, and I've actually heard a story of like that, of a friend of a friend. At what point is it they're kind of making it worse by not being an advocate for themselves?
That absolutely is a factor in any case like that you just described. Anything similar like that, I guarantee you the defense will argue it's called a failure to mitigate your damages. We all have an obligation, even if you're injured, financially, physically, whatever, you have an obligation to not let the damage go on and on. An example of not an injury case, but financially, if somebody's in an accident, their vehicle's totaled, and it goes into the tow yard, and the tow yard is charging $20 a day for it to sit there, you have an obligation to either pay it or get it out of storage so it doesn't accumulate so much in storage costs that the insurance company looks at it and says, we never would have authorized that. You're going to have to pick up part of that. So that's a financial one. So when you're talking about an infection, yes, you have an obligation to mitigate your damage. It means to take action that makes your damages not be as bad as they would otherwise. So you have a personal responsibility to follow up and pester your doctor and get after them and say, this is you're not responding to me. This is an infection. This is serious. You've got to take it seriously. And if they don't, you get into the emergency room, get into urgent care, find another doctor that will get you in on short notice for another opinion. You've got to do something.
Well, what if somebody paid cash because they don't have insurance and they're like, I can't afford to go to the emergency room. I can't afford that. I can't, because they're going to want me to pay right now. And I don't have the bill. I don't have the money for that. I saved up all my money and paid this doctor cash.
Well, so an emergency room, if they are any reputable or larger hospital where they're taking people through their emergency room and getting Medicare payments, Medicare regulations say that they cannot turn people away. So that's basically every emergency room in the country. If you have an issue like that, you go into the emergency room, they have to treat you first. They'll bill you on the back end and you can take care of that and discuss that with them later on, but they have to treat you.
Well, I want to talk about something that actually personally happened to me. I had a colonic and I was overfilled, and I ended up losing my appendix due to it because they filled me with so much water and it almost burst. It actually burst on the operating table. And I said to you, oh my gosh, like I had to go through surgery, and this is a reputable company in Scottsdale. And you looked into it and you're like, we can't do anything.
So in every case, whether it's malpractice, whether it's a slip and fall, whether it's a car accident, there's always economic factors that you have to take into consideration as well. And those economic factors are, what's it going to cost me to pursue the case and get it across the finish line? Now, fortunately, when people come to us and we take their case, we do that analysis and we expense the case. We pay for the case because we've already decided, look, it's going to be worth it for us to do this. But this is the analysis that happens. And so you have to decide, with what I'm going to spend, am I going to get enough of an award in the case to cover those costs and to make it worthwhile, because there are risks involved as well. And so some of the risk with costs in a medical malpractice case, particularly here in Arizona, and I think it's probably most states at this point, you are required before you ever bring that case to hire an expert witness and get an opinion from the expert witness who then has to be able to testify in court about the case. Well, those expert witnesses cost a lot of money. And so you can win a case with small damages in medical malpractice, but a lot of times you look at it and say, we're going to spend tens and tens of thousands of dollars on this case, and we may not get that much for it. And so there's that analysis that goes into it as well. The other thing is whether you actually can get an expert that will support the opinion that it was malpractice and was not one of those things where it's just happenstance. It just happened and it could not have been avoided.
It's emotional too, because I remember when I got the burn marks on my face from one of the treatments that I did at one of the doctor's offices. And I remember saying to you, like, this is my face. Like, I've never had scars. And you said, I understand it's your face. And I'm like, but the value of my face has scars on it. I'm only 39 years old. And it was hard to reconcile what I value that as versus what a jury would value that as. You know, them saying, well, you chose to go over there and get that treatment, and not that you would expect to have scarring.
Right.
But what is the value on that? Because emotionally, you're mad and you're like, they shouldn't have done that, because in the end, they were pressing too hard. They created too much heat and it blistered, and I contacted them and they blew me off and said it was they joked and said it's because you're pretty. That's why it happened. If it was somebody ugly, it wouldn't have happened. Like it was a big joke to them.
Yeah. And it comes down to what I mentioned earlier, the aesthetic value that you place on it versus somebody else. And when we're talking about these cases, we're talking about them eventually ending up in front of a jury and asking strangers to evaluate, is it that bad? And I think that you would have a hard time getting jurors to agree that you don't look good.
Well, also, so is it something like vaccine injury compared to like Botox injuries? It's like there's so many people that have success with Botox and other people that probably have symptoms, but they're not connecting it to the Botox. You know, I stopped having Botox because I did notice a sluggishness in my body that I thought, you know what? I am injecting botulism into my system, and I know that they say that it doesn't affect the blood-brain barrier and different things like that. But I noticed a difference. I mean, you're injecting it in your body. Would that be almost like a class action lawsuit against Botox, the brand, if a bunch of people came together and said, hey, we noticed this is happening, where instead of one person just going there and saying, I get Botox and then my legs feel heavy. If there was 80,000 people getting that same, if it's not written already on the warning, but I guess there is a lot of things written on the warning for Botox, I'm sure. I haven't read it.
Well, yeah.
I just answered my own question.
Yeah, the warnings on medications, we all know those commercials that are on TV.
We just heard one this morning. It was absolutely ridiculous. It was for prostate cancer or prostatitis, and they're like, may cause blindness, and you may not be able to swallow, may cause your leg to fall. I mean, it was the most ridiculous.
So why are they doing that? Why are they doing that?
To protect them.
They're doing that to say, look, we warned you. We told you that was a known adverse consequence. You knowingly took this medication.
Because you probably think everybody else does it. It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be the 1%.
Yeah.
So if someone has permanent ptosis from Botox, which I know they say it wears off, and I don't even know if that's a thing, then it's kind of like, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, that would be in their warnings. That's a known risk. But getting back to your question about it being the sluggishness, you'd have to have enough scientific evidence to say this is as a result of Botox. There are so many people that are having this effect. And then it still has to pass that economic analysis test. If we're going to take on a big pharmaceutical manufacturer that has billions and billions of dollars, and we're doing it over a select group of people that don't have a permanent injury, just have something temporary, and if they stop taking the Botox, it goes away, the value of that for each person goes down substantially. And so you might spend literally hundreds of thousands of dollars on that case to pursue that pharmaceutical company who's willing to pay just exponentially more to defend it, that even if you come out ahead and you win, it may not be enough to make it worthwhile for the people in that class.
Well, and even if you have a mommy makeover and you take X number of weeks or days off of your job because you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be better by then. And you better be prepared, even if it is a lawsuit that you can pursue. If something happens and you can't work, you better have money saved up before you have that mommy makeover. You better have alternative things that you can do if you're a mom and you're like, I'm just going to have this done and then I'm going to take care of my kids. What if something happens?
Yeah, it's
and
any surgery.
You're not going to get that money even from a lawsuit.
No, it takes years.
It takes years. So, I would warn moms, if you are going to do that, and I don't mean to be scary and a Debbie Downer, Megan Downer, you better be prepared. If something does go wrong, I hope you have the accommodations for whatever is going on in your life, whether that's if you can't work or you have kids, somebody to take care of them.
Right. And the other thing that I want to say is I don't want to be so down on medical malpractice cases, because if it is something that you can prove that the doctor fell below the standard of care, that any reasonable doctor would not have done what this doctor did. He used the wrong technique. He used the wrong instruments. Did something that is so obviously wrong for what happened, and that caused you injury. That's malpractice. That's textbook malpractice. That's when the cases go.
And that's where they can call us.
Without a doubt.
And they can find out, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah, but they're difficult analyses on every one of those cases. They're never any two are the same.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So here's a question for you. If voters say they want literally anybody else, what happens in an election if that's actually the name of the candidate?
It's ridiculous, but it's smart at the same time, but ridiculous. How can your name be that?
So there's a story out of Texas where a guy legally changed his name to literally anybody else, and he's running for mayor, and he's running against one other guy. So the ballot will read this other guy's name or literally anybody else. So that raises a lot of issues with regard to legal name changes, whether those have to be recognized. Is it a matter of free speech, ballot integrity, and election integrity?
But hold on. There's certain names you cannot name your kids, right?
You can't.
There's certain names that are legally illegal to name your kids.
I don't know the answer to that.
Look up on ChatGPT really quickly. I'll just play some music. There are certain, look it up. There's certain names that you cannot name your kids. It's illegal to name your kids certain names. I'm telling you.
Are there certain names?
Nighttime sharpens high. I'll sing for you all.
It is illegal.
Don't count it against me.
name
Nighttime sharpens.
children.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her. And
Many states prohibit symbols, numbers, emojis, or symbols. Some states limit the length so that the name will fit on the birth certificate.
That sounds really long. Anybody else, but whatever.
Right. Names intended to commit fraud or incite violence may be rejected. It's rare but possible. Some jurisdictions disallow titles like King, Queen, Jesus Christ.
Yes, I've heard that. You cannot name your kid Jesus Christ in some states. See?
Yeah, well, there's been a case where somebody legally changed their name to Jesus Christ. It was legal for them to do that because they wanted to be on a ballot, and that was struck down. They were not allowed to be on the ballot.
But see, it was that crazy that you know about it.
Yeah, that I know. I just didn't know about naming your child that, but the person was allowed to change their name to it. Legal name changes have to be recognized when it comes to ballots. They have to be, unless it is fraudulent, is meant to confuse the voter, or some other reason like that, and then it does not have to be recognized.
But it doesn't matter what your name is when you're voting because voter ID is not
right
legal.
Right, exactly.
But yet on Facebook, they will not let me change my picture, even though I've sent my driver's license and my passport twice, and they're like, we can't recognize it's you.
Tell them you need that to vote.
I need to vote for this guy. What does he call his name? Anybody else?
Literally anybody else.
But that sounds like a really long name. Is it all one name? Is it literally? And then his middle name is anyone else but?
No, literally anybody else. Else is his last name, Mr. Else.
I would purposely not even vote at that point if I didn't want the other guy.
Yeah, but unless the election board strikes that, and then he would likely sue, and then a court would have to decide, is that something that's allowable? But unless and until that happens, it's allowed.
That's redonkulous.
It's ridiculous. It really is.
So I also wanted to talk today about, which I thought is interesting with AI, that in Canada, they were suing AI or OpenAI because they helped this person shoot 8 people and kill them in Canada in a Canadian school. And they're saying that OpenAI should not be giving directions on how to pull off a shooting, which I agree with, but
it goes a little bit further than that too, because my understanding of it is that OpenAI flagged it as something that was potentially dangerous and deactivated the account. And so the person opened up a new account and just picked up where it left off. So OpenAI knew about it and never alerted the authorities. And I think that's really where the issue comes down from a legal perspective. And it's Canada, so I don't know the laws in Canada.
So the issue isn't them helping them saying, you're going to buy this. I don't know what it did, but like buy this weapon and you're going to hide behind the bush. And
yeah, well, the lawsuit involves OpenAI not acting reasonably based on information that it had, not alerting the authorities about it.
I mean, I ask questions about politics on ChatGPT, and I'm like, so America or so Israel, and they're like, we are not allowed to answer about Israel. That is against our policy. And it's like, what? I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, and so think about this. In the United States, at least, and every state is different, but for the most part, somebody who is a therapist and is treating somebody who comes in and gives information that they're going to carry out some act of harm towards another, that therapist is generally required to do something about it, notify the authorities or warn the victim or something along those lines.
I don't think priests are.
So
I think our priests are different. Like, I know in one country I think it was Italy, we were visiting a church and criminals could go stay at the church and not be arrested.
Yeah, that was in Greece.
Oh, that was Greece.
Yeah, there was an asylum law there. And generally there is a priest penitent privilege where the priests are not required to disclose that. But there are still times where if there is an imminent threat of harm, then sometimes the law will look at that and go, yeah, that was really something that should have been told. I don't know about the priest penitent privilege, but for example, even attorneys, attorney-client privilege. If somebody comes in to an attorney and says, I just killed a man, the attorney is absolutely not allowed to say anything because that's attorney-client privilege. But if somebody says, I'm going to go kill this person, then you may have an obligation to break that attorney-client privilege and prevent the harm of another person. And that's kind of the analysis with this OpenAI thing is where is that responsibility? Where does that responsibility lie? Do they have an obligation to warn authorities and warn people of something that they have information that is an imminent threat? There's a lot of argument about that in and of itself. Is it imminent? Is it something that, the person clearly was going to carry out? The other argument is, yeah, but do they really have an obligation to do that? Do they have a duty to anybody to do that? And another area of the law is when people commit criminal acts, even if there was a duty to do it, sometimes the criminal act is seen as an intervening cause where you can't be responsible for the criminal acts of another person.
Now, talking about the priest made my head go squirrel and think about something else. And I don't think we talked about this last time about the man connected to he is connected to CCV, where 20 years ago, he was arrested for child molestation. And during his plea deal, he said he could be monitored for the rest of his life. And there are people picketing now because there was a pastor from CCV or I don't
know if it was actual
a youth
may have
pastor,
may have been a coach even. I'm not sure.
But they are from CCV and they wrote a letter of his. It
was a character reference.
Yes. And they said they were agreeing that because he's now saying that he shouldn't have to have that follow him for the rest of his life. Well, I think there's consequences, and that girl he molested is going to have to feel that for the rest of her life. And you may feel that Christ has changed your life, which I very much believe in, but you also have consequences while you're still alive. And I think that if that was one of the plea deals, that he got to not serve the length of prison time that was asked for, I think he needs to finish this out. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you about that. I think that's part of the plea deal, and he should be held to that forever. It will come down to the decision of a judge. And a judge can say, no, I'm going to relieve you of that condition of your sentence. I would think and I would hope that the judge would take into account the wishes of the victim more than anything else.
But how does that work? I mean, you were a prosecutor. Here's a plea deal. It's like you can't go and do good deeds and then say, look, I've been good. It's not that, I mean, I know I always talk about it's not fair. Life isn't fair, but that doesn't seem fair. Then why don't you say, I want it removed. I'll go serve the time.
Well, it happens every day though. I mean, it happens in courts all across the nation. You think about somebody who's convicted of a felony and they get their civil rights stripped. They can go back later on and ask for those civil rights to be restored. And courts can do it. They have the power to do it. Should they do it? That's a different question altogether. But they do have the power to do that. They do have the power to change what the sentence was, how it was imposed. They have to use the right vehicle to do that. It's not just, I think I want to.
I could see maybe if at this point the individual he harmed was not currently alive, which, I mean, not that he murdered that person, but if that person has to live the rest of her life with that pain, it's not fair that he doesn't have to have that reminder, if you ask me. But and I know that might sound harsh to some people and it might not sound very Christian of me, but I think that there's forgiveness and there's also consequences that you have to live out.
Right. No, I agree. And I don't think forgiveness should make the consequences go away. It doesn't negate what happened. It just means you're free to better yourself and not be stuck with it. But I think the judge could take that into consideration if a victim were no longer living. I think if the victim...
But I mean, I don't see how that matters, because then it's like he could be doing it to somebody else. But she's able to come and speak on behalf of the pain that she still is feeling.
Yeah, but think
later.
about this, because this happens a lot too, is that, people get convicted of horrendous crimes and make amends for it, do their time, and the victim actually comes into court and says, I forgive them.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that they need to, suffer the result of this any longer. I support their motion to remove that. That happens all the time.
Well, it's not black and white.
Right.
I think in this instance, she did go. We saw that in court. There were, videos of her explaining she's still hurting. And this scenario is not one which I think he should be relieved.
I mean, if I'm the judge sitting on that case, the victim's wishes are paramount to me. That carries more weight than anything else.
Yeah.
And if the victim takes it upon herself to, even in spite of all the pain that she went through originally when she was victimized, originally when she showed up in court when the guy was getting sentenced, to now come back all these years later and say, I still don't agree with him getting this removed. I still want him to suffer what he agreed with. I think that that's tremendous. And a judge really would be hard pressed to overlook that.
I agree.
Yeah, that's my opinion on that.
You know what? I just had a thought.
All right.
You said if you were the judge, and then I imagined you like in a black robe. I think we might have to do some fun podcasts where we have two ridiculous arguments and you're the judge in the middle.
Yeah.
And we're like, who's Ken gonna pick?
All right. We can definitely do that. Maybe we should have you be the judge.
No, it's more fun.
You're Miss Fairness. You would make the decision based on fairness.
No, we want to know what Attorney Ken thinks.
Right.
One wants to know what I think.
I can do that. I can guarantee you that in real life, I would not do that. I'm too happy doing what I do.
No, I know, but it just would be fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. So I don't have anything else.
We're going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
I can't wait. They say it's going to rain a little bit. Spring break's right here. Everybody is getting ready for
what happened with that thing with them saying that the wait times at security at the airport was like tremendously long. Was that real?
Yes.
Or was that a fake thing?
That's what they're saying is real. They're saying that TSA, they're not getting paid. Is it real?
It's fake.
It's fake. Right. Our producer said it's fake.
He just flew in today.
I've been on 4 planes in the last 24 hours.
4 planes. It's fake. All right. Good news.
Good to know.
So then if we miss our flight, we can blame you.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I showed up in less than an hour before my flights.
Really?
And I got to my gate at the boarding.
He got to his gate. Well, we have Clear, so.
Oh, yeah.
We
don't even have that. You guys are mega.
We're going to zoom through.
We're mega
easy.
good.
Yeah.
Well, I love having Clear in the places that have Clear. I like getting through there easily.
Yep.
And you don't have to take your shoes off anymore.
Right.
But if you have boots on, you have to take your shoes off. I didn't know that because you had said last time on the podcast, you don't have to take your shoes off. So then I wore a pair of boots and I go over there and they're like, nope, we need to see your ankles. You have to take off your boots. I'm like, what? Ken.
Well, boots make sense.
Why?
Well, because you could hide a rifle in your boots.
What kind of rifle do you own? Is it for a vertically challenged person?
Right.
Oh my gosh. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love to hear what everybody else is doing for spring break.
Yeah. And do you want to tell them about the defensive driving scholarship?
Sure. We have a defensive scholarship. I always mess this up. Defensive driving scholarship with Driving MBA. There's a location in Glendale and Scottsdale. And what it is it will train you or your child age 15 and a half to 18 how to drive defensively. It's worth $2,000. We are giving away 12. We've given away 2. And all you have to do is go to gerberinjurylaw.com, look for the icon, click on it, and fill it out, and tell us why you believe you deserve this scholarship.
And we actually sat in on one of their training sessions the other day.
It was awesome. We sat in on our daughters, and they're great. At first, so what they do, break it down. They have a machine you sit at like you're driving and computer screens. So you actually get to press on the gas, and it's like a video game, and you get to learn the signs. You get to pretend like you're driving. Our daughter went over the median a couple times. She was going the wrong way in a one way. So you get to do that 2 hours, 3 times. So that's 6 hours before you actually get on the road. Then you go and take so many hours on the road, and then you take their serious defensive driving class, which is on this big computer, on this like seat that moves and scares you, and you actually feel the bumps. And that was originally made for police officers and truck drivers.
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. They really have a knack for explaining things to brand new drivers in really understandable terms, and taking some of the fear out of it in some places, making sure they have the proper amount of fear in other places. So they really did a good job. I was impressed.
Yeah, I totally like it.
Yeah.
I totally dig it.
Yeah.
I love you. Okay, I got to say something.
All right,
I'm
go for
sorry.
it.
I got to say something. I'm going to get hate. So the new coffee place it's either in Kierland or I think it's in Kierland. Cannot stand what they do at La La Land. You're going to hate me, but I'm literally sitting there waiting for our food. And for some reason, it took them about 30 minutes and everyone else was it probably was a mistake back in the kitchen. I'm not mad about it. But I was sitting there the entire 30 minutes. I ordered 2 avocado toasts and 2 small drinks, $50.
Yikes.
And then, I mean, the food was good. The drinks are good, but it's just really, really pricey. And then the whole time as people leave, they go, I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. Love ya. Love ya. My ears were bleeding. And our daughter is like, you're so cringe, Mom. You're so old. Like, what is your problem? It was so fake. Love you. And then because we didn't get our food and I asked them, I don't know if it's because. I'm just saying that. Our daughter said it was because. I asked like 3 times for our food, got it at like 40 minutes. They didn't say love you when we left. And she's like, it's because you complained. I'm like, that would be really stupid. But dude, like change that. Like be like, have a great day. The love you is just so insincere. I can't take it.
Yeah, I can imagine that just sounds overly insincere.
It did. And I'm no fun. I know. But young people probably don't watch our podcast anyways. So $50 and 40,000. I love you. I love you. It's not worth going. Or at least get your drink and leave.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks for joining us.